Meeting the love of one's life, running away, and getting married, this is what most teenagers dream of. Caroline Crouch was no exception. A young girl in her final years of high school, only 15 years old, was captivated by a financially well-off 27-year-old pilot who flew to her school in his helicopter and won her heart. They eloped and got married, but what seemed like a perfect fairy tale soon turned into a murder that shocked the world. On Tuesday, May 11th, 2021, at 4:30 a.m., a man named Charalambos Anagnostopoulos, also known as Babis, was horrifically awakened in his bed. At the time of the incident, he was renting a two-story house in the suburb of Glyka on the outskirts of Athens, Greece. He had no time to respond as three men, their faces concealed by hoods, overpowered and beat him. They were armed with guns and immediately tied Babis up, then taped his eyes shut. He was powerless as the attackers assaulted his wife, 19-year-old Caroline Crouch. The entire incident woke their 11-month-old daughter, who was sleeping nearby. The attackers, who spoke with Greek and Albanian accents, repeatedly asked where the money was. Caroline had no idea that what began as a robbery would end in her murder. Caroline Crouch was born on July 12, 2001, in Athens to retired engineer David Crouch and Susan Della Costa. When she was just 8 years old, the family moved to the island of Alonissos, where she grew up. Her parents fell in love with this coastal place. From an early age, Caroline loved life by the sea and was passionate about diving and swimming. She met her future husband, Babis, during a Good Friday parade in 2017. At the time, Babis was a commercial helicopter pilot, and Caroline was only 15 years old. 3 years later, they married in Portugal on July 15, 2019. Just days before her murder, Babis and Caroline bought a plot of land. Both planned to build their dream home on it for themselves and their little daughter. Caroline received 50,000 euros from her parents as a gift for purchasing the land. The couple had hidden around 10,000 euros at home for building the house. Due to the instability of the banking system in Greece, citizens often kept money at home, believing it to be a safer option. Caroline may have thought so too, but she had no idea what would happen on May 11th. Babis and Caroline, along with their daughter, were gripped by fear as the attackers demanded money. In an attempt to end the horror, Babis pointed out where the money was hidden, in a Monopoly game box. The attackers took the money but didn't leave the house, instead searching the rooms for jewelry and other valuables. They took everything they could, but it wasn't enough. Babis heard the attackers holding a gun to his child. Even while tied up, he tried to fight back, but the cord around his neck tightened so much that he kept losing consciousness. Eventually, he passed out, and when he came to, he found that the attackers had left the house. The only sound he heard was his daughter crying. About 30 minutes later, Babis managed to reach his phone and dial emergency services using his nose. When the call connected, he pleaded for help, but his words were muffled by the tape on his mouth. An hour and a half after the attackers broke into the house, rescuers arrived at the scene. What they saw was horrifying. The living room and kitchen were completely ransacked, drawers were opened and empty, clothes and belongings were scattered all over the house. Among them was the open Monopoly box where the money had been hidden. On the stairs, they found a husky puppy hanged by its own leash. Babis was found on the floor of the master bedroom, his eyes and mouth taped shut, his hands and feet bound. On the bed lay Caroline Crouch, face down, with their daughter crying beside her, trying to wake her mother. Caroline was dead. Rescuers quickly realized that Caroline had been Babis, freed from his restraints, saw his wife's body and fell into apparent shock. The police immediately secured the child and began questioning Babis based on his version of events. They concluded that there were 4 men in the house, 3 who entered, and a 4th who kept watch outside. The police reconstructed the sequence of events that led to the murder and the criminal's escape. The attackers entered the house through a basement window, the family puppy, Roxy, and then entered the master bedroom where Babis and Caroline were sleeping. After that, they searched the house and found the money in the Monopoly box. Before fleeing, they suffocated Caroline with a pillow. The attackers may have thought Babis was dead, as he had lost consciousness several times. The investigation revealed that Caroline's death was not instantaneous. The attack lasted about 6 minutes. Bruises on her body indicated a struggle, and wounds on her lips and tongue suggested the use of sharp objects. During the investigation, no specific evidence left by the attackers was found. The only clue was a hat one of the attackers likely dropped during the struggle with Babis. Based on this, Babis was able to provide a description of the attacker, which was used to create a sketch. The police found that the attackers fled with 10,000 euros in cash and jewelry worth 20,000 euros. The police also concluded that these were professional criminals who had been monitoring the family in advance and were waiting for the right moment to strike. The investigation dragged on, and the public began to lose patience. On June 17, 2021, 37 days after Caroline's murder, at her funeral, police officers who had discovered new information asked Babis to come with them to Athens. With the help of new evidence, the police found inconsistencies in the version of events Babis had previously told. After 8 hours of interrogation, Charalambos Anagnostopoulos confessed to killing Caroline. The investigation revealed that Babis killed his wife after an argument during which Caroline had allegedly threatened to leave him and take their child with her. This became the trigger for the murder, after which Babis staged a robbery to cover up his actions. He tied himself up, taped his mouth and eyes, and strangled the dog to make the scene more convincing. Further investigations revealed that the couple's marriage was far from happy. Caroline had repeatedly complained about Babis's control over her life and had tried to leave him. However, because of their daughter, she stayed with him until the situation escalated to the point of her death. This crime, which shocked the entire country, left behind questions about domestic violence and the lack of protection for women in similar situations. It also demonstrated how far people are willing to go to hide the truth, even if it means killing someone they once loved.